Welcome home, where we provide motivation, inspiration, and motivator after motivator after motivator. Here at America's Next, I have Amir Williams here with me today. How you doing, Mr. Williams?
What's going on, man? What's up, Sad? How you doing?
I'm doing quite well, quite well. To all our viewers out there, I know it's been a long weekend. Guess what, ladies and gentlemen? I had a newborn baby this weekend. Her name is Sing Riley. So that happened in my life this week. And hey,
Congratulations.
thanks. What's new with you, AJ? What's going on?
Oh man, lots of things, man. I got a new book going on. So I'm just working with that. Lots of projects coming up. So staying busy, trying to stay busy as we're locked down in this pandemic thing.
Sure. Now take us back for a minute. Where'd you grow up at?
I was born in New York, born in Harlem, raised uptown in Washington Heights.
Okay, I've heard stories about Harlem. Talk to us about the era that you grew up in Harlem. What was your Harlem like?
Well, I was born there. I was born in '81, so we lived there for a couple of years, and then we moved further uptown. Washington Heights, for those of you that know New York City, begins like above 155, somewhere around there. So it's further up than Harlem. The place that I grew up in was pretty quiet, although Washington Heights itself, it got some energy. It definitely has some different energy, especially back then. But fortunately for me, I went to school downtown, and so I had to travel downtown to go to school. So I spent a lot of my time in Lower Manhattan. But I'm from uptown. Yeah. So
Okay.
it was interesting.
What did Harlem sound like in the 80s? What did it sound like?
Oh man, I mean, I remember just being very full of people. You know what I'm saying? Very gritty. It's not like now. They put up a lot of new things. Back then, the Apollo was really the epicenter of everything, where people would come around and chill. 125th Mart across the street, same thing. But it was really gritty. People came out there with their best clothes on. It was always that. You know what I mean? But like I said, I spent a lot of time downtown. And that era, being in Hell's Kitchen, that was really gritty. I mean, lots of people out, people snatching purses, prostitutes. It was really like when you see on the movies, that's really what it was.
Can
I
you
used to.
can you name a movie that looks like the Harlem that you're talking about, or the Manhattan rather that you're talking about?
Oh man, there's man, if you go, even though this was the late '70s, but it was leading into the '80s. If you think about Death Wish,
Oh,
um, if you think about, just if you think about dark and gritty and lots of people in the street, lots of, what I'm saying, that was the era. That's really what it was, man. But New York is a place like no other, man, for people that don't know, because you have that energy and you have that danger and things going on, but it's also a place of a lot of opportunity, a place of a lot of different cultures. And so there's a lot of blending, there's a lot of learning that could be done in that city.
sure.
So
Yeah,
I love it, man.
yeah. So, talk to us about some of the opportunities that you were able to get involved in as a child.
Okay. Well, my mother was a Broadway actress, singer, and dancer. So
Okay.
she started dancing when she was a teenager. Started dancing with the Alvin Ailey Company and traveling the world. And then she started doing Broadway shows when she had me. So I used to travel with her. And a lot of times I would be backstage while she was performing on stage. And so a lot of those, for people that are outside of New York and don't know, Broadway is a certain section of Manhattan where
Okay.
all of Broadway shows happen on 42nd Street. So that's why I spent a lot of time there. And between that time, sometimes my dad would take me and walk me around. We'd be looking for martial arts movies out there. And that kind of thing in between when she was working. I started my own career at 2 years old, doing commercials. And I did that until I got my first major show at 6 years old, which was, many people might remember, A Different World. For
Okay.
those that don't know, A Different World was a spinoff of The Cosby Show, where
Okay.
the daughter Denise went to college. So I played the dorm director's son, JT. So that's what I started. And I went on to do, plays and Operas, I got my first next big break when I was 12, on the soap opera All My Children. And I was on there for a number of years as the character Jamal Wilson. So,
Wow.
so I kept, and kept working steadily, pretty steadily. Law and Order, um, different plays and operas. I did New York Undercover a couple of times. I was even the voice of Mac McKenzie on the cartoon show Daria. So I got a chance to work in a lot of different mediums, as well as TV, movies, and work with a lot of different actors and actresses. So
Okay.
I had some great experiences for real.
A lot of the time I see me myself included. You have a child. You think that the child has the type of personality that you could see, whether it be on Broadway or modeling or something like that. But we don't know much about what it's like for a child to be, on the big stage or on the big screen. What was it for you? What was it like for you as a 6-year-old, and really almost being like a veteran at 6 years old because you started at 2 years old?
Yeah.
But how did that feel? What was that like for you?
Well, that's a great question. That's an interesting question. To When I was 6 and I did A Different World, it was really exciting because they flew me and my entire family out to LA, and we lived there for like 6 months to shoot the show. And at the time, this was 1988. It was an adult cast. I was the only child there, and that's how it was for many of the projects that I did. So it's a very adult life. So it's exciting, and there's all of that, but there's the piece of it that also isolates you from your peers because you're used to being around adults. You're not really dealing with kids as other kids do. So you're in adult conversations, you're in adult parties, you're dealing with a cast of adults. So it kind of makes you grow up faster because it's a mature business. You're responsible to know your lines. You're responsible to be on time. So there's a lot that comes with it, and you have to be really disciplined and responsible. But I had, great experiences in the different places that I traveled and different shows that I did. But there is that factor, in terms of separating you from your peers. I mean, in school, you're doing something that other people are not doing. They can
Mm,
see you on TV, even though you work. So sometimes that can create a little friction
mm,
between people. Even it does. You know what I mean? It's a product of that business. And there was a point where I was really recognizable, like going through the mall or through the street when I was on My Children, because it's something that everybody watched, and I would get fan mail and I would get recognized. So there's a lot of responsibility that comes with it. You have to be mature. You have to have, in my opinion, you have to have parents that watch out for you and teach you, principles and morals to go along with that.
mm.
So there's a lot to it. It's exciting and it's rewarding, but there's a lot to it.
How did you remember your line at 6 years old?
That's a great question. It just so happens that I had a photographic memory. I would really look at a script once. I would actually read the script all the way through. I wouldn't just look at my lines. I would read it all the way through, like you do a book. And I would remember. I would put it away. And my mother, a lot of the times, my mother would be after me. She'd be like, "You read them lines yet?" Like, I'd be like, "I got it, Mom. I got it." And that's just how it was. I would take a look at it and I would remember it. And what would happen in my case is different for everybody. Everybody has different tactics and different things that they use. But in my case, if I studied too hard, it would make me nervous, and I would go out right out of my head. So the trick for
Right.
me was to look at it one time, and the thing about that is, if you understand the whole story and you understand the whole scene, then you know what's coming next because you're invested in the scene, as opposed to you just knowing your lines only. So it helped
Mm.
for me to know the whole story and know the other people's lines as well, so I know when to take my cues and I'm in the mode. Even if I mess up on a certain line or forget a certain line, I can continue to keep going because I'm in the zone of what's happening. So that was a
Right.
big part of me being able to remember.
When you talk about your ability to acclimate to an environment such as a movie set or a TV show set, it makes me think, look at what this 6-year-old was able to do. And we're not going to stay on this forever, but I'm thoroughly amazed at what you were able to do as a 6-year-old, and it piques my interest into our expectations of other 6-year-olds in our society. If a 6-year-old in your case is somebody who can memorize lines, be punctual, memorize an entire script. Um, then I think it stands to reason that 6-year-olds are they're quite the talented people out there. Would you say that too?
That's very true. And I mean, even in today's world, because we have the internet and because we have, so much information at their fingertips, kids are even more advanced than they
Mm,
were at the time when I was. But as you bring that up, I think it's important for us to consider and remember the flip side of that coin is because they can do these amazing things, we tend to think that these 6-year-olds or whatever age they are more mature than they actually are. And
mm,
what that does is that forces them to breeze past their natural development as children. And
mm-hmm,
sometimes we can expect too much of people that are young. And
uh-huh,
because they're trying to live up to those expectations, they're not allowed to develop naturally as they would. And they're not allowed to make mistakes that normal children would make. You
mm-hmm,
see, it's like if a normal child tells a lie, that's something that we expect. But if a child that is on TV or a child that is doing something very spectacular at that age tells a lie, we will tend to challenge them or punish them harsher because we expect they're supposed to know better. But we got to remember that they're still 6.
mm-hmm,
So I think that that's a byproduct of being a talented child in whatever medium that
mm-hmm.
adults that are around that child need to remember that even though they may have gifts, that doesn't mean that they have the experience or the maturity to go with it. They still have to be able to be allowed to grow naturally um, as in order
Yeah,
to mature naturally.
sure. I mean, you bring up a great point. Like, we have to remember that children require the appropriate developmental work and developmental activities for their age, no matter what they might be into. So I
Yeah.
definitely hear you there. And I'm also thinking that your entire perspective was opened up at a young age, and that probably made you a leader amongst your peers. Is that true?
Yeah, to a certain degree. I mean, I always was the type of person that I knew what I wanted to say. I knew what I wanted to do.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Even when it came to acting itself, like a lot of times I'd be on set and directors would tell me to do something or say something a certain way, and I would tell them that character wouldn't do it that way, or they wouldn't dress like that, or they wouldn't, you know what I mean? And so even then I was already um shaping myself up to direct, which was always my dream, to write and direct. And so yeah, for in that way you could say I was. I mean, even in school, I took lead in certain things. It's just my nature, you know what I mean? But that has a byproduct to it as well.
Mm-hmm.
That can be looked at as a positive quality, but sometimes it rubs people the wrong way. And if you have that quality, you have to be able to use it. What's the word that I'm looking for? You have to be able to use it with being responsible as you're using it, because you realize that that's something that everybody doesn't have, and sometimes it can rub people the wrong way. So
Right.
it takes some maturity and it takes some time to learn how to use that quality properly. But yeah, you could say that I definitely always had that with me and that in me.
Mm-hmm. So do you have brothers and sisters?
Yeah, I have one younger brother. He's about 9 years younger than me. Yeah.
Okay.
And
Wow.
then I
Okay.
have
So
and
you
then I
older
have an
brother.
older brother. Yeah.
Oh, and an older brother too.
Yeah. But he didn't
Oh,
grow up with me. My older brother is from on another side, but he didn't grow up with me, but he's about 10 years older than me. So yeah.
okay.
Yeah.
Sweet. So all right. So then what was middle school like for you? I mean, you must have felt really established as a person. At what point did you realize that you wanted to be in media? Had you already figured that out by middle school?
Yeah, I mean, by the time I was in middle school, I mean, you could say you're talking about from 11 to 13. That was when I was doing a heavy amount of my work. I got one of my first movies at about 10 or 11, Daybreak, an HBO movie with Cuba Gooding Jr., Omar Epps, Moira Kelly, Martha Plimpton. And that was my first major role. I had to do stunt training for that. I died in that movie. So there was a lot going on. There was gunplay in there. There was a lot going on. It was very exciting, especially for an 11-year-old. And at that time, I was in junior high. And then I got all my children about seventh grade same thing. So a lot of what I was doing, which was making me really famous because these were on big networks and people were watching, was happening during middle school. So that was that was a lot of transitioning, getting adjusted to that. But I still kept my mind on my schoolwork. I still excelled. But it was definitely interesting. And these are not things that every 12, 13-year-old is doing. So and I went to public school. I didn't go to private school. I went to private school when I was very young, but by the time I reached junior high, it was public school. So I took the train to school, no limos. I took the train to school. I went to public school. I took the train home. You know what I mean? So there was that. Um, so I'm really a city kid, man. I grew up here. I ride the train. I did all of that.
Right. And I mean, I'm sure you dealt with some adversity from your peers because you were on TV. It's like everybody's sitting in class and you got a kid next to you thinking, "Look at him! I seen him on TV last night. Now he's sitting next to me." Everything,
Yeah,
everything you do, somebody was accusing you of being on stage. You walking down the
yeah.
hall, oh, you think he on stage?
Either that, or I think I'm better than everybody, or one of the favorites. I talk white, because from very young, I used to read from very young, and my mother was very big on that, and
Okay.
so I always knew how to articulate myself very well.
Mhm.
And like I said, you don't know when you're young until you come up against people that's a problem for, and then you have to figure out how you're going to carry that. You know what I mean? Because you realize that knowing all the answers in class, knowing how to read big words, knowing how to articulate yourself is not something that everybody can do. And when people can't do that, they may react negatively to you. And as a child, you don't understand where that's coming from, but
Right.
as you get older and you understand people's backgrounds and what people are forced to grow up in and what they're exposed to and not exposed to, then you understand why somebody might antagonize you for something like that. But that is part of the burden of it. That's part of the flip side of having those gifts, or having those talents, or having that exposure that young. Those are some of the things you got to deal with your
Hmm.
peers.
Hmm.
But
And
I handled it.
you handled it. You handled it gracefully. What did what
Yeah,
was it?
yeah.
What was it that helped you to deal with it though? I'm looking for tips for young people who might be out there. They might be standing out a little bit. They might be facing some of these adversities. What are some of the things that they can do to move forward through that adversity?
Great questions. I gotta say that, as most things that we're talking about, it starts at home. One thing about both my parents, they were very dynamic people. You know what I mean? They were very take charge people, especially my mother, dancing so young, getting out on her own for so young. So she always walked with confidence. She always moved with confidence, and she always took pride in representing herself in the best way. And that was something that she passed on to me. And so because of that, it was always about what I came here to do. You know what I'm saying? So that came from home. You know what I'm saying? That is a foundation of being able to push past whatever adversity other people may be giving you as you're trying to do what you came here to do. The
Hmm.
second thing that I would say is finding some core people that really rock with you and really understand you. And I was able to do that. There was a core group of friends, people that I really moved with, that didn't it wasn't a problem that I was on TV for junior high. When I got to high school, it was different because I went to professional performing arts school. I was
Right.
actually there at the same time Alicia Keys was there. And there were other famous alumni that come from there as well. So everybody there was doing something. So it wasn't a big deal. What I was doing, it didn't make me stick out. But in junior high school, it was a science school, and it was public school. So I did have some people that I rocked with and that knew me for who I was and whatever. And that's important too. That you give people an opportunity to really know you, so they know it's not just the face on TV, or what your character is, but you're a real person. And it takes some vulnerability to be able to do that. But I was always like that. I never had a problem mixing with any type of people or being around different types of people. That was always my style. So, you know, I found a way to make it work.
Sure. Do you think that there is anything that we can do to provide big experiences for more youth more children in the school systems across America. When I look at somebody like an Amir Williams, I'm thinking he's one kid who had a really big experience, and I know the other kids might have wanted that, but it's not okay to not only come down on Amir for having a big experience, but it's also not okay for all these other kids to really want that type of experience but not have access to it. So, what do you think we could do to provide a big experience to more kids in our schools?
Man, that's a big question. I think that there's a lot of pieces that go into that. There are parents that have taken the initiative by investing in charter schools so that they can have a certain kind of curriculum and they can have, opportunities for the kids that are not controlled by budgets and funding from the
Mm-hmm.
state, or at least not fully controlled by them. So I think that's a part. Um, Exposure is a big part too. You know what I'm saying? Sometimes kids are not aware that they may be into something or that something is a possibility because they just don't see it. So
Right.
for those of us that are in the community that are older, I think that there are ways that we may be able to show or share our gifts with the youth, with the generation that's coming up under us, to expose them to other things. It may not have to be nothing big. If you have the means to do something big and your heart moves you to do that, that's cool. But sometimes it could just be a simple mentoring, or it could just be, encouraging the gifts of those younger than you. The gift to write, the gift to play ball, the gift to paint, whatever it may be. And those in the home to encourage those too. Even if it's something that you might not be interested in, you got to let your kids see what they might like. You know what I mean? They go through phases. And so I think all of us as a community can do little things like that, especially if there's younger people that we know that we're close to. We can encourage those gifts, take them places that support those things, show them things, art shows, or dance shows or things like that. And, I came up that way, so it seems like nothing to me, but then I realized later that everybody didn't go through that. Everybody isn't exposed to that. So to the degree that we
Right.
can, I think it's our community's responsibility to do that, to show our youth what we can show them, something different, to encourage their gifts.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's another great point by you, that everybody wants to feel like they're a part of something. Everybody's not going to want to feel like they're a part of the biggest show in town, but everybody wants to feel like they're a part of something. And maybe it's just making sure that more of our young people is a part of something. Is each and every one of these young
Yeah.
people a part of something? I think that that's really big. That's really big.
Yeah, yeah, definitely, man. I mean, I go to open mics. I've gone to them for years, and there's a lot of talent, man. There's a lot of young men and women doing their poetry, spitting. They got crazy bars. They got a lot to offer, and so that's that those are some of the small ways that we can support, because there are young people out here really doing art, all types of art. And so when we see places that they're displaying their art, we need to go and support if we can, because that encourages them to keep going.
Sure, sure. Okay. So how did this all parlay for you into high school? What did you do in high school? What was some of your biggest achievements or memories from your high school era?
Oh, like I said, high school was great, man. The high school I went to was called Professional Performing Arts, down on 48th and Manhattan. And like I said, at the time that I was there, Alicia Keys was there. Probably finishing probably junior, or yeah, probably junior year when I joined, or sophomore year. And then later on, Claire Danes also went to that school, very famous actress. So those of you that know, Jesse Eisenberg later went to that school. So everybody that was at that school was either dancing, singing, playing an instrument, or acting, sometimes doing more than one of those. And so being in an environment like that, it made what I was doing seem a lot more normal. So all of us understood each other's language because we were all artists. And a lot of us, many of us, still keep in touch with each other and meet up with each other. In fact, I was just at a function a couple of days ago with some of my people from high school. So it was a great time. And at that time, I did a couple of operas at that time. I was on New York Undercover at that time. So I was still working. And I think I got Daria, the cartoon show, um, probably my last year of high school, or close to the last year. So I was keeping busy. And I was writing too. I was writing short stories. A lot of my writing teachers really encouraged me to be in the writer that I'm today, because that was something I was taking. I was building the building blocks of that while I was in school, doing short stories and stuff like that, because I always loved writing. And so, yeah, high school was a great experience, man. A great experience for me.
I'm wondering how you were getting involved in all these projects. Did you have a manager, and what did that manager do? How were you getting involved like this?
Well, I got an agent. I had the same agent ever since I came into the game at 2 years old. I started with two young ladies that were at an agency, and then they formed their own agency later, and I followed them. So, what would happen is, typically on a day, I would have auditions after school, and I would go downtown to those auditions. Sometimes, if I had a job, like for instance, when I was on my children, they would have to hire a tutor for me to attend on set. So I would be going from school for days and just do my work with the tutor, and they would coincide with the school and make sure that all the grades and stuff were there. If I had to shoot a movie and I had to be out of the state or out of the country for a number of months, they would arrange for the tutor to be with me on set there same way. And so it was very exciting. I mean, there was a lot, at that time, there was a lot going on. Imagine as a teenager, you're flying around, and you get your hotel room, and you're in a new country, a new state, and you know what I mean, and you have your time, you have your time to yourself. So there was a lot going on. Very interesting time. Had a lot of fun doing it.
Yeah. Hey, Amir, we're getting ready to go to a break, but before we do, I want you to take a few seconds out and talk to a young person in America right now who aspires to be an actor. They aspire to be a writer on a high level, and they have no idea where to start. Can you provide some encouragement to young men and women out there today who want to get involved in some of the things that you've done in the past?
Oh man, that's a great thing. Well, first thing I gotta say, if you have a passion for anything, definitely work towards it. Definitely don't give that up. Work towards it. Let your parents know that that's what you're into, so that they can support you in that if they have the means to do so. And as far as getting into the acting game, I actually coach young children on acting. So I can give the website for that, so that you can get in touch with me, and we could hook up a coaching session and get you everything you need to get into the game and to become a strong actor in the game. That's something that I do also. So, I'll let you know. I guess when we finish up the end, I'll drop the website for you, so that everybody can get that and get in touch with me, because I love to help young people coming up that is trying to do what I did.
That's right. Ladies and gentlemen, we're talking to Amir Williams, also known as AJ Williams. This man has a variety of experience and a lot of wisdom when it comes to media, movies, writing, directing. Tell somebody that you know to get to tune into America's Next Motivator right now. And we'll be right back after a brief message with AJ Williams. America's Next Motivator. Monday, Wednesday, and Friday at 5 p.m. Eastern. Tuesday and Thursday at 10 a.m. Eastern. America's Next Motivator. Hosted by me, Cedric Riley, and sponsored by the Pride Empowerment Network. And we're back. AJ, how you feeling out there?
Good, man. Doing great. Thank you, man.
Sure, sure. Now you said you started writing when you were in high school. When and where did you write your first large body of work?
Well, actually, I started younger than that. I started probably doing short stories at about 11. I used to read a lot of novels coming up, and one of the things that I read consistently was there was a writer called R.L. Stein. Many people might know he wrote the Goosebumps series, but he also wrote a more edgier series called Fear Street, which was a bunch of murder mysteries, and that was the thing that I read, and so that influenced my writing heavily. So I started writing short stories that young, and then when I got to high school, I started doing it more for English class and stuff like that. Um, probably probably about 16 years old was when I wrote my first movie, and that was me getting my feet wet into trying to do something really big. Um, and so that was the first time that I wrote a large body of work, as you say, 16 years old.
Uh huh. You said you wrote a movie, huh? What was the name of it?
Uh, what was the name of that movie, man? It was called I think it was called the Fifth Amendment, something like that.
Okay.
Something like that,
Wow.
yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
But
Sounds.
there were elements that I kept in there that I've used in in newer projects. Yeah.
Uh huh. So did you ever use writing as a way to talk about things that were going on in the community?
Oh yeah, definitely. I mean, one of the things that I always wanted to do with my writing, and one of the reasons I wanted to become a writer and a director, was because I wanted to have some control over the narrative, the stories that were told about children, and the stories that were told about my people. And one of the things about the acting game, which is one of the things that are not great, is a lot of times people that are telling stories about children or telling stories about people of color are not either one of those. So they tend to be typecast in a certain way, and I realized that I was always playing characters that were like in need of help, or confused about who they were and needed an adult to save them. And at a point when I had gotten to have more than 10 years in the business, I started to get tired of that. So I wanted to kind of shape what was seen, and that's what really pushed me to be like, I want to write and I want to direct so that I can have a hand in telling the stories that I think need to be told and the way they need to be told. And
Mhm.
that it took me some time to get around to my first book, but my first book is really about that, is about our people.
Did you see any characters out there in the movie world over the past several years that you really liked? Were there any characters out there that you said, you know what, I like that character. I like the way that he or she is portrayed, and I like what he or she represents.
Oh yeah, man. I mean, there's a number of actors who, for the most part, I really love their work, and I've been following them for a long time. I mean, Al Pacino is one of them, one of my favorite. Robert De Niro, Denzel Washington, um, of course, Samuel L. Jackson. I mean, there's a number of people that every time they pick up a character, they really make it their own. And
Hmm.
of course, we got to give respect to, rest in peace, Heath Ledger, who did a wonderful job playing the Joker, which is another one of my favorite characters, and he did an excellent job doing that. So every I go to the movies quite a bit, and a lot of times I see things that I'm like, yeah, man, they really nailed it. They really did their research. Acting is a big job. I mean, people that don't know probably think of it more as a hobby, or like, but if you want to be really good, then you have to understand, you have to get into the mind of the person that you're trying to play, and you have to really be able to put a piece of yourself in that character, because that's what makes it real to the people watching you. And you have to be able to connect, and everybody can't do that. It takes a certain level of vulnerability to do that, and it takes a certain level of risk to do that. So I gotta applaud everybody that really does that on screen and leaves it all there on the stage, man.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I want to ask you about the Black Panther. Um, who was your favorite character in that movie? And also, I want to have a moment of silence for Chadwick Boseman as well. So let's do that.
Definitely, man. Definitely.
But I thought that there were some very strong characters in that movie. how did you feel about the legacy of Black Panther, culminating with that actual movie? And who was your favorite character in it?
Oh man, I loved Black Panther. I saw it twice. I'm a huge Marvel fan. When I was in junior high school, I used to collect Marvel cards. I used to collect comics. I used to collect toys. So I was a big fan of Marvel. Period. And even though Stan Lee did a wonderful job about talking about black themes and using black characters, especially with the X-Men and other things. We hadn't really seen the focus be on a black character. So this was the first time that we could see a black character in power as the leader and also see the everybody in the cast be black. So of course this was a monumental moment. I felt really connected to it. I loved how it came out. I have to say my favorite character, even though everybody was doing an excellent job, who stole the show from me. I'm getting old, man. I can't believe I'm forgetting her name now. But it's the character, his girl, the one that was the agent.
How do you say her name? Something with an L.
I can't believe I'm forgetting it now. It's crazy.
Lupita?
Yeah, there you go, Lupita Nyong'o. Yeah, so she stole the show from me, man. She was determined. She was strong. She was gorgeous. She played it with intensity, but she was very light too. And even though everybody was acting their butt off, for me, she was the one that stole the show. That was my favorite character.
Right, right, yeah. That movie was really it was really big time. It was one of those things where everybody had to go see it, because if you didn't see it, then there was a lot of conversation that you couldn't be a part of. And
Exactly.
yeah,
Exactly.
I
And
thought
what it did was that it showed that the black writers are there, the black directors are there, and that a black movie, an all black cast, is bankable, can make money, because it did $1 billion, which is something that many movies can't even dream about doing. But also is the fact that it shows that if you put the kind of engine and the kind of money that Marvel was able to put behind that, that big things can happen. And that's what we need. All of us, we just need opportunity. A lot of the times we need the financing to be able to bring some of our ideas to life. And since that happened, we've seen a plethora of more black ideas given a chance and given light, whether it's being on a big screen or on a small screen with Netflix and other places, that show that there's a lot of ideas out there. There's a lot of black writers. There's a lot of young black actors and actresses that just need an opportunity to shine. And once we do that, once we give them that, we're going to see a whole bunch of work and ideas that we've never seen before. So we need to encourage that. We need to do more of that.
right. And then also, talk about the viability of us creating our own stages. Is there benefit there too, to create our own stages and put our own works on?
Oh, definitely. I mean, I had the opportunity to direct my first play in 2016, The Diary of a Mother, and we revived that in 2019, right before COVID. Um, so I've been going in that direction myself, and of course, if you put your own money up, or somebody invests in you, you have an opportunity to tell a story that might not otherwise be told, or might be changed or altered to fit the agenda of whoever's giving you the money. So
Right.
the more that we can have our things be black owned and with black money, the larger stories that we're able to tell, and the closer they will be to our experience, and be able to tell more and be able to put more people on, more writers, more behind the scenes people, more directors, makeup artists, costumers, or the whole nine. But that takes money. The reality is, to do a movie or a TV show takes a lot of money to put something on quality, millions of dollars. And so we need people in our community that are black that have access to that, to put it behind some people with these projects. And the more they do that, the better the art will be. It's that simple.
We are facing a pandemic right now. COVID-19 is among us, and it seems like, based on what you're saying, that now more than ever is a great time to invest in your local creators. Would you say that?
Oh, definitely. I mean, we're unfortunately, because of COVID, a lot of people in the arts. I have a lot of friends online that are in the arts and have been in the arts for a long time, and of course, they're having a hard way to go. Broadway is shut down for the foreseeable future for at least the next 6 months. Movies are being pushed back because cast members are getting COVID. So it's affecting that industry greatly. And so But of course, on the small screen, things are still being made, and on YouTube, things are being made. So, there's always when the door shuts, a window opens, as they say. So we probably have to think of different ways that we can get our art out, maybe in a different medium, in a different way, but still get it out because people are trapped home. They need entertainment, and there are those of us that deal exclusively in entertainment. We just got to make sure that we find a way to get it to them.
Do
But yeah,
you
if you are in a position to invest, definitely do. I would definitely encourage that.
sure? Do you feel the virtual shift that's happening right now?
Oh, definitely. I think a lot of us may be a little naive about what's happening out there, and feel that if such and such happens, there'll be a return to normalcy. And the reality is that it seems like this is a shift to a new kind of life and a new way of doing things. And I think that many of us have to be prepared for that. We have to be prepared that things are not going to go back to what they once were financially, um, health wise, whatever. Everything has changed. Just like remember in 9/11, it changed the way we traveled. And I think this is another section of our life that's going to change the way we do a lot of things. And so for those of us that deal in the arts, um, we have to be aware of that, but that shouldn't kill our desire to do art. In fact, it should enhance it. We should just be thinking of new ways to do art, and
Right.
that's it.
Do you have any projects out right now that we can go and find?
Oh, definitely, man. So my first book, which I wrote in 2017, is called Flame of Retribution,
Okay.
and this book is fiction, but it dealt with um, the shooting case of Sean Bell in 2006. Many of you might remember he was killed the night before his wedding. 50 shots killed him and shot his two friends in the back. And I was inspired to write something around him and his widow because his widow, Nicole Paltry Bell, kept his name alive for so many years. And I thought that she was so interesting that I wanted to build a character around her, and bring light to that case and other cases as well. So that book is available on Amazon, Flame of Retribution. If you want a signed copy, you can DM me at Nation of Flame, Nation _of _flame on IG. You DM me there, and I'll get your address and everything, and get you a signed copy. So that is available. And I just dropped a new book, which just came out a couple days ago. I actually have it here. This is called The Bates Theory. Now, this book is not fiction. This is nonfiction. And this is important because this is a new medium for me, but I felt it was something important to do. It deals with men and their relationship with their mothers, specifically toxic
Wow.
mothers, and
Whoa.
how that shapes our viewpoint of ourselves and our viewpoint of women. So I wanted to get into that because I feel like now we're in a time where the communication and the dealings between men and women are at an all-time low, and I think and one of the things that will help to get us back on track is understanding a man's origins. And to understand a man's origins, we got to understand his relationship with his mother. That's
Wow.
his first woman in his life. So I wanted to get into that, and open that conversation up and get people talking. So that's my new
Yeah.
project, the
Well,
base theory.
if we can, let's open that conversation up right here, right now on America's Next Motivator, and let's unpack some of it. What is a toxic mother?
Ah, man, great question. So I go deeply into that. In fact, if I can just open the book
Sure.
first, you get the introduction is your mother toxic? And then that question is designed to get the grown men to ask themselves, um, what is my relationship with my mother right now? When my mother calls me, do I feel uplifted or do I feel drained? Is she pouring into me or is she manipulative? Is the relationship between us healthy or is it unhealthy? So my problem with this book is to break it down so that you as a man can identify, just like you would with any relationship, a friendship, a romantic relationship, the first woman in your life, why would you not examine if that relationship is healthy or not? So the first question in here is designed to get the man to think, is my mother toxic? Chapter 10, the last chapter, is are you a toxic mother? So that question is for the women. So for the women that read this book can identify certain behaviors and see if they're doing them or not. if they're not doing them, to identify if they're toxic or not. Some of those behaviors are manipulation, um, um, just making yourself a primary force in his decision making, not allowing him to make his own decisions, degrading, belittling him, a host of things that you can be doing to your grown son right now that can have your relationship be toxic, and examine whether you did those as a child. So if you did those during his developmental years, no doubt that is a big influence on how he feels about himself and how he feels about women, because remember, you're the first woman in his life. So I think this question is very important to understanding the modern male, and for the man to understand his own psyche and examine his own thought process and unpack some of that, as you say.
You know, men and women, we engage in all types of conversations, and we'll touch on a whole lot of subjects, but we don't want to touch on our mother. So
No
I
doubt.
think, I think that you're getting into a vein that is very critical, and I think that the conversation that you have there can have a whole lot of potential. I don't
Mhm.
see men at the barbershop talking about the relationship that they have with their mother and how it makes them the man that they are today.
And think
So
about that. You got to ask yourself, why not? Why not? Because we talk about everything else. We talk about religion. We talk about politics. We talk about war. We talk about basketball. We talk about our girls. So why wouldn't we talk about our relationship with our mother when for many men that relationship is enhanced by the fact that they were raised by single mothers? So if your father wasn't there to balance the parent relationship, then she's a primary role in your life. Why would you not examine the nature of that relationship? And I think the reason that it is because we have been designed, um, we have been primed and primed not to examine that relationship, as if by examining it, we somehow disrespect or disregard whatever sacrifices she made to bring us up. And that's not true. That's not true at all. It's vital that we examine every relationship that we're in to make sure if it's beneficial or harmful to us. So if the mother relationship is the first one that we ever have, and that mother is still with us and still a big part of our lives, it would do us well to examine if that relationship is healthy or not.
I think that is absolutely huge when we talk about, what can we do better as a community, and this is for each and every community out there.
No
What
doubt.
can
No doubt.
for those of you who ask, what can we do better as a community? For Amir Williams here to be saying, listen, evaluate your relationship with your mother and how it has impacted your overall character today. I think that's very important. I think that that's very important. Um, Now, as we talk about the relationship between the mother and son, in your perspective, are we inadvertently talking about everybody?
Well, I use a very specific term when I say toxic mothers. Of course, any relationship between mother and son will produce results because we affect each other as humans, as natural. But what I'm examining in this book is specifically toxic mothers because I'm dealing with harmful behavior. So, we're talking about violent behavior, neglectful behavior, physically abusive, sexually abusive, mentally abusive, all of those things that I've heard as I've built with different men that it's undoubtedly affected their lives, but they won't speak on it because they've been trained not to speak on it. But it affects because they're not able to confront their mothers about what they went through. That negative energy goes somewhere else. It goes to their children, it goes to their women, it goes to society, in anger and violence. And so, if we want to do our part in making society better, making our men better, making the next generation of men better, we have to examine this relationship and break it down and make sure that men understand what's happening to them if they have their mothers in their lives, and that the women that are raising the new generation of young men understand what healthy behavior is and what unhealthy behavior is. And that's a big thing that we can do to making sure that some of these negative behaviors that we're seeing by men now don't replay in the next generation.
Mhm. So, and that's kind of to my point, that what you're saying is that if we can have a conversation with the mother, then we can also have a positive effect on the child.
Exactly.
That brings me
Exactly.
to another question. Do you have any ideas on what we can do to heal a mother who has become toxic?
That's a great question. I think that as in the time that we're hearing the word therapy a lot more, especially as black men, than we've ever heard it, which is a good thing. But this is a new thing for us. And like they say, the old credo is that hurt people, right? So if your mother is exhibiting toxic behaviors, it's more than likely because she has some childhood trauma that she hasn't unpacked. And so that also leads to the point of what she needs to do for herself to make sure that she's whole as a woman and that she's healthy as a woman. Because how can you healthily raise a child if you've never dealt with your own trauma? Right?
Mm,
We hear that about men a lot, that they shouldn't be dating or they shouldn't be making children until they deal with their trauma. Why wouldn't that be the same for women, especially if they're the one that have the children and they're the one that primarily raised them? So that this is another very dicey conversation, but very necessary conversation that I think is going to get us to the point where we want to get to, which is healthier men, healthier women, healthier relationships. And that's a big point of why I wrote the book. So I think that therapy is a big piece. Being able to talk is a big piece. Being able to admit your own mistakes is a big piece, and being able to change behaviors, even behaviors that are familiar and that you're used to, is the greatest piece in moving towards where we want to move to as a society, especially for our people.
yeah. I don't know if you notice about me, Amir, but I spent years of my life in foster care, and I have come to know that there are 440,000 or more youth in the foster care system today. And one of the
Yeah.
biggest reasons why we have so many youth in the foster care system is because they had dysfunctional parental relationships. So I think that your book is a great conversation starter for how do we make the world a better place? How do we make foster care less of a toxic environment? How do we shrink the numbers of young people going into foster care? But I want you to talk to another group of people, and those are the people who are going to say, uh oh, here they are making an excuse for their poor behavior. What do you say to those people?
That's very interesting because I spend some time in the forward and I spend some time in other places in the book reinforcing that that's not the case. Um, I take my hats off to all mothers who are able to do their job without manipulation, without violence, without um, neglect. All of those type of mothers are not what we're talking about here. We're talking about violent mothers. We're talking about neglectful mothers, unprepared mothers, drug addict mothers. We're talking about sexually abusive, physically abusive, mentally abusive mothers. These are things that we do need to unpack and examine. And of course, every grown person is responsible for their choices. But as we understand more about our psyche and our makeup, our choices are rooted in what we were taught as children. And so if we don't understand that, then we won't understand the choices that we're making. And that's why certain people are not able to stop negative choices because they don't know where they're coming from. So it's not an excuse, but it's understanding. Because how are we going to be able to change behavior if we don't understand the root? We don't understand what's motivating us when we do certain things, especially if the behavior is repeating. So of course I anticipated that conversation. I anticipated that kind of focus, but I took great care to write the book in such a way that people will know that this isn't an attack on women. This isn't an attack on mothers. This is an attack on mothers that have done their job in a reckless way and have produced the kind of men that we hate to see: violent men, abusive men, molesting men, um, non-existent men. Those behaviors come from some place, and if we're ever hoping to stop those behaviors, we got to understand where they're coming from and what they're rooted in. So that's the point of me doing the book. And I'm definitely open for the conversation and ready for the conversation because I feel it's necessary.
Yeah, yeah. Ladies and gentlemen, as you can see, we're talking to an actual star here today. Somebody who decided not just to use his talent for any and everything, but he decided to be concise and to be deliberate about what he is applying his gifts and talents to. I think that his books are gonna start very healthy conversations in our community, and I'm looking forward to more from him. AJ, where can people find you besides Instagram? I know you gave us a Nation of Flame on IG, but is there any other way people could contact you for coaching or anything like that?
Sure. Well, I have a website. The website is degratiaproductions.org. DEIGRATIA productions.org. So that's my website. You can go there and leave me a message, and we can hook up a coaching session and, get to whatever it is that you need to get to. As
Okay.
far as social media is concerned, Amir Williams, my name is my name on Facebook. You can get to me there, DM